Shenanigans.
While there's still no word on a cure for the virus,
report suspicious activity and call 911.
I can give you every assurance Mr. Rodriguez is ill and he's
You did not grow up in Buford.
Yes, I did. Well, I mean, I grew up off of Buford Highway.
I grobed off.
I grew up off of Buford Highway. Okay?
Okay.
The Swanee
I
address.
didn't say Buford Highway. That's like me saying I grew up off 285.
Yeah, but dude, everything like Swanee now is not the Swanee that was available whenever I was in high school.
It was just all swamps back then.
No, dude, it was just like trees and, now it's just way different, dude. That's why I had to drive to Lawrenceville to work at a movie theater. There was no Mall of Georgia. There was all that didn't exist.
Side note, guess who's playing here next month?
Your favorite, Nickelback.
Well, sort of close. The band that I'm excited about is Toad the Wet Sprocket.
Well, that's not any kind of close.
Well, hold on.
Oh, no.
Gin Blossoms.
Ooh.
Which never got into Gin Blossoms.
Dude.
And this is sort of the Nickelback one, but I actually love this band because I think they're just good songwriters. Do you remember Vertical Horizon?
Heck yeah, dude. Wah, 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 wah,
yeah, there you go.
Uh-huh. Yeah, dude, Vertical Horizon was awesome, dude.
Yeah, come on down. It's gonna be in the
where?
the Swanee like bowl.
Oh, you mean like where we play?
No, I thought it.
Oh, it's across the street. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's like down in like the sort of like hole. It's right in that area though.
Okay, down in that old asteroid crater.
Down in the swamp.
Speaking of swamps, dude, I have got to tell folks, over on the main show, man. Surprisingly enough, we actually get quite a few requests for people or from people asking me or us to kind of dive a little deeper into D&D shenanigans.
Mm-hmm.
And, some of our friends and stuff will be like, why don't you guys film it and stuff? Because, I get it. There's the hilarity that ensues is amazing, but part of the reason why I don't isn't because, we're afraid of getting in. It's
canceled.
Really because I feel like at the same time, I don't want people to have to worry about having now to perform in some way. Like, to me, this is like our time down here.
This is our time.
and I just want people to get immersed in the story that's unfolding, the adventure and all the possibilities. Now, that being said, man, there's just so much fun that we have. And I think if any of you, best friends here on the Patreon, if you have played Dungeons and Dragons before, if you haven't, you might not really kind of get the gist, but essentially, or care, but you're here for it, and we appreciate you for that.
Yeah, and also we want to give a shout out and thanks to Gygax is Life and Critical Role Fan for sending in those comments telling us you want to hear more about our D&D adventures.
Are you being for real right now? Oh.
You totally missed it because you were too busy probably checking your email.
No, I was checking my watch. I'm just kidding.
Same thing.
No, but just the general, structure of it is my sort of role in all of it is what they call, and it sounds
Here we go.
Dude, the funny thing is, if you're not into this, the second I say this, you're going to be like, oof, right? I'm the dungeon master. Okay? Which really just means that I will present an adventure to folks that are playing, okay? And the players have to come up with their own characters, and it can be typically you have to kind of abide by a certain sort of, rule set in terms of how your characters are created and what the possibilities of what they can do and stuff. But I wanted to create sort of what is commonly known as a, quote, homebrew world. And so, really, I didn't really want to put too many constraints on what I wanted to create a scenario where you guys could come in and really just, create any character that you wanted to create and just, knock yourself out, man. Do whatever you want to do. You want to do that? Be it. At the same time, I, of course, wanted to abide by the rule set because that truly just kind of makes it easier for me. Because when you're designing, the adventure itself and these sessions and all of that, you really want to set up, you don't want to just say, these guys are going to fight this incredibly powerful monster that you just don't even think about. And then next thing you know, and then they died,
And then they died.
So there's that aspect of it. But all in all, essentially, I guess we can kind of talk about some of the stuff that we did or that I created now that you guys have gotten to a self-made cliffhanger.
Oh, yeah.
And folks, by that, I mean, these guys did something that I kind of just didn't really think would happen. I prepared for it just in case, because, you know, sometimes you can just tell when people are just like throwing caution to the wind. And I set up a pretty intricate, hard to detect and hard to disarm trap based on a trap that I read about in an old D&D module from like the 70s or 80s, early 80s, if anything, that was designed for these sort of D&D tournament play. And back then when they designed adventures, there wasn't a whole lot of hand-holding. It was designed to kill you off. And then if you got to a certain point in the dungeon, great. If not, sorry, your character died. Now,
Which, by the way, I do think that's interesting. And just like a little side note, I think it's cool. And I've heard that before too. I've heard that up until advanced D&D came out, it kind of was the goal of the Dungeon Master, almost approached more like a typical like board game where it's like you're trying to like knock out players, you know? And so like that idea of like the game master or dungeon master, like basically like literally trying to kill you and not really caring about any kind of like, oh, this guy worked so long building this character and like creating this super elaborate backstory. And yeah, they didn't care about any of that stuff. So
right. And I mean, it was also less complex of character creation back then. It was either like, hey man, you're a fighter, a thief, a wizard, or a
ranger. Well, ranger was like
a ranger or something like that, you know? And so now it's so complex because ultimately I think people just want all kinds of different options. And you know, the D&D Wizards of the Coast who own it are kind of like struggling on how to best do that and stay within sort of like the rule set and all that. But all that to say, I borrowed from this adventure because it, you know, rather than just completely design every room from scratch, I found this old school adventure and a couple of other different ones and kind of just created my own version of this incredible, very sort of central to, I would say, South American themed temple that these guys went into. Well, first, what do you want me to give them like some, I guess, background into what, like how it all started? And I mean, you know, like,
we're in it, bro. We're in it. I mean, this is what we always talk about. For you folks who are on the fence, if you should join our Patreon. Granted, we're not talking about D&D every time, but whatever topic we're talking about, we're just talking.
Well, when I was trying to put together, well, let me back up. I had this goal for us to play D&D more, you know, in 2024. And one of the things that I think is every D&D group, whether they're just getting started or if they've just been around for a long time, one of the things that they're plagued with, man, is if one person can't make it, because you have this like instant bond with all the other people that you're playing with, and you want to further the adventure, and because it's like a story that you're, you know, kind of playing or whatever. Oh man, I'm trying to like make this sound less nerdy, but I don't.
No, it's not possible.
Yeah, I don't think it can. Yeah, so like it'd be like if you were playing a video game and you had these other people playing with you, and then one week one couldn't. You wouldn't want to go further in the video game because not only are the other people going to be kind of weaker because they're one less guy, but also you're going to get further into this game, and this person is going to be like, "Wait, what happened?" It's just the whole mess, right? And so because of that, it becomes hard to just like maintain a consistent schedule. And dude, I say we all, 3 out of the 5 players have wives and children, and everyone has a busy work schedule. And so just to be able to do it consistently anyway is troublesome. So I started learning about this method that this guy developed. He's a famous game designer and he's famous in the D&D community. And it was called a West Marches style campaign. Oh. And what that is basically is it's built upon the premise of creating a place where they can come, the players can go back to at the end of every session.
Oh, yeah.
And then really it was ultimately designed because more than just like your typical 5 to 9 people wanted to play with this dude. And he was like, well, I mean, I don't really want, that's a lot of prep for somebody, you know, to be a dungeon master. I don't want to just, you know, keep on taking everybody through the same thing. What if I created a system where you could kind of come in and out as you wanted to and join up on that quest for that day? And, you know, ultimately
Just having like
the story would move on, but you would be able to like jump in and play when you could and all that. And so I kind of wanted to utilize something similar, but I also love story, you know, and a lot of these West style March campaigns is, you know, hey, there's this undiscovered land. We're going to start discovering it and exploring it. And for me, like the exploration and travel portion that I've kind of sprinkled into this adventure anyway, isn't really like my favorite thing.
I like that stuff.
You know, it's cool. And as you can tell, there's times when I've built in these situations and stuff because I've started to view it differently. I heard this really cool guy, and I can't even think of the name of the dude, but he sort of said like design everything as if it was a dungeon. So in this sense, it's like, oh, you're going to go through this section of jungle. Well, now populate it as if it was a dungeon.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
right.
And so there's going to be a clue that might lead the players to chase down a Tyrannosaurus Rex, and which happened in the campaign. You know, there's all these different things that you kind of lay at the players' feet, and then they decide what they want to do. So I kind of borrowed from that design and then also sort of just tweaked it a little bit to kind of fit what I knew we would all want. Because, like I said, a lot of times there's no real central theme or narrative in some of these, but I wanted one.
Yeah, I think it's just so smart because that is the one thing that's kind of tough about like D&D, especially with like adults. I mean, teenagers, it's, you know,
I mean, dude, when our kids are in high school, we're playing D&D every day.
Oh, yeah. I'm just saying like it's harder for adults who have like kids and families to like, you know, so it's it just makes the whole thing easier to have like this home base kind of thing. And then it's like, oh, you know, your character, you know, if you can't make it, then your character just kind of, he just hung back at the lodge and, you know, while the other players like went out. Like, so it's pretty ingenious, really. Instead of like, oh, one guy can't, but the other 5 people can, so we got to cancel, you know?
Yeah, and it's been kind of an experiment throughout. I mean, I've kind of changed my mind on a couple things. Like initially I thought, well, if you're absent, you don't get to level up, but the other people do. And then I was like tracking experience points for some folks. And I mean, ultimately I was just like, it's group leveling. I don't care.
Yeah.
You know, if you're here, that's amazing. If you're not, sorry, we're all leveling up at the same time. It just makes it easier.
It's been cool too, like the idea that, so for example, like me, like I missed a session because we were just wall-to-wall soccer in this house. My wife, Courtney, coaches 3 teams at the moment. She's now talking about coaching a 4th team in the fall. And man, I'm super psyched about it. I just love it. Anyway, so I could not make it. There was some sort of, I can't remember. But all that being said, I missed a session, but then I was able to like make it up. And you and I just did like a walkthrough solo session with me. And I don't know if you want to get into this now, but like there's so much like sort of dream sort of theme in this. And so it's cool because like a lot of it could be kind of like, oh, were they like asleep? Were they awake? Were they... And so like it even that...
Wow, that's kind of ironic too.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that makes the whole thing even more sort of believable. I don't know if believable, but...
Well, yeah, I mean, it just means like it makes it... There's so many different possibilities. I wanted to... So basically, the short version of the large picture here is I wanted to create something that incorporated everything from like, you know, being able to play in terms of like explore someone's dreams, and then also time travel. There's a time travel aspect to it. There is, you know, almost like essentially mix in everything you know about our show, and then also like the Terminator in a way.
Yeah.
I discovered this villain that they finally have learned about at this, after, I don't know, close to 10 sessions or whatever.
Yeah.
They finally learned more about this villain and what her, I guess, mission is. And essentially it's this villain from like Magic the Gathering. I mean, I don't even know the lore really, only surface level. And then I just sort of riffed off of that and created this whole thing. But essentially she's part machine, part organic material. And they go and invade other worlds, dimensions, realms, whatever, and sort of take over the humanoid population. And I say that because, we're in D&D, so there's elves and dwarves and, humans, of course, but orcs and ogres and all kinds of stuff. They come in, they take over those people by essentially infecting them, and those people then become part of her army. And so she's known as the mother of machines. And so to her, it's almost like this religious, she's like a religious zealot who is also trying to solidify power within her own world. And so she's just amassing this gigantic army across multiple dimensions so that it's just like this, endless sea of warriors that she can then use to kind of attack her own people and become the, sit on her throne or whatever.
Yeah.
All this kind of happens and kicks off, one of the tropes that people, at least dungeon masters, kind of say, don't start your adventure off in a tavern, because the easiest way to bring multiple characters into the same room to kick off an adventure is you're sat there in the tavern, you notice a man sitting in the corner, and I mean it's from Tolkien, right?
Yeah,
I mean that's how Frodo meets what's his name, the Ranger,
Aragorn,
right? They meet in that tavern, and then that's when everything kicks off. And so,
well, and the what's the new Lord of the Rings, like the show, anyway. But yeah, it starts out, it has like the famous like tavern scene, which, I mean, the thing is it, like, yeah, it's super cliche, but at the same time, like, I don't think you could find
an easier way to start,
Well, an easier way to start, but also like a D&D fan that doesn't like it. It's kind of like, it's pizza, baby.
Yeah. Right. But I enjoy any of the games that I've run. I enjoy sort of like a new twist on that. Like, for example, the way that this one started is all these characters are kind of, for different reasons, they end up in this town. And then there's this mysterious figure that washes up on shore, this old man that people are kind of like whispering about. And so basically I was planting these nuggets of mystery for them to kind of go and investigate,
Well, and should we give it away?
What do you mean?
The old man was Jeffrey Epstein.
God, disgusting, dude. No, I would never. If the only reason that piece of trash would be written into an adventure is sort of in the same vein as, like, I don't know, the folks in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood or something, when they just like kill those dang Nazi people.
Well, I just meant because, he obviously did not kill himself.
Oh, so, I got you. Yeah, we did.
Also, have I told you about me watching that movie?
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
Yeah, have I told you the story of that?
No, were you like, oh, kids, this is going to be a good one?
No.
Double feature. They got Minions and then...
No, but...
He thought it was a fairy tale.
No, well, I mean, sort of. I didn't know...
Like Minions, Princess Diaries, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
No, I didn't know anything about the movie other than I liked the cast. And my wife...
Like, didn't know that it was Tarantino?
No. I knew it was Tarantino, and which has
been a clue. That should have been a clue.
Yeah, but if you didn't know, you wouldn't have had any idea that it was like almost like a alternate ending type thing.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
I had no idea.
I thought you meant like if you didn't know, you wouldn't know there was going to be violence. I'm like, yeah, if you'd never seen a Tarantino movie before, you might be right.
No, of course, and that's why I wanted to see it. But I think my wife. The reason why is like my wife had seen it like on a plane or something. And I didn't get around to see it, but I remember getting to the end when like all of like the super like bad stuff starts happening. And I'm just like, what is happening here? This didn't happen.
Yeah.
And then I realized like it was just like this light bulb moment of like, oh, this is sort of like an alternate reality.
Universe. Yeah.
And my God, it is such a satisfying ending.
Oh, yeah, dude. I mean, dude, is there any other reason to become a filmmaker than to just like kill a bunch of Nazis in one movie and then kill a bunch of serial killers in the other? I mean,
Well, not even that, but then also add in the
punching the cultist in the face.
no.
Loved
Also add in the fact that like anybody that grew up in the 80s, if you put a flamethrower in a movie,
Oh, man.
I mean, certified gold
Yeah.
in my book.
God, so good, man.
Yeah, it was awesome.
I mean, not to completely get off subject, but that's what we do quite often over here on the rabbit trail, and hence the name. But, dude, synchronistically, I happened to see this interview with Tarantino this morning, and he was talking about Brian De Palma movies. And he was talking about, like, when he was in film school, you know, of course, it was, like, cool and rightfully so to, like, you know, Spielberg and Scorsese and, you know, all these folks. But he's like, but De Palma was like the guy that we all sort of debated about, you know, like one kid would say.
And give our listeners
and Tyler, I'll give
a break.
The listeners
explain
and
it like I'm
Tyler.
a 4-year-old.
Yeah, I understand, but they might not, right? So he did, I mean, really
Here we go.
movies that I think that he is really known for would be stuff like Body Double, which came out in 1984, Dress to Kill, which came out in 1980, Carrie for the horror fans, The Untouchables in 87.
I thought he did more like horror stuff.
Well, so some of the stuff that he did early on too is that, I mean, he did Scarface and, you know, that kind of thing. But some of the other stuff that he did was very Hitchcock-esque. Like he did one called Sisters that basically is like the small time reporter tries to convince the police that she saw a murder in the apartment across from hers. And so like there's these strange sort of thriller, sort of mental horror, really. And there's one called Obsession that he did, The Fury. Let's see, what else? Body Double. Yeah, so The Fury, and some of them are on HBO Max right now. I think The Fury is. But The Fury is a former CIA agent uses the talents of a young psychic to help retrieve his telekinetic son from a shadowy secret government agency. I mean, dude.
I mean, that's great.
Kirk Douglas, you know. So anyway, it got me down the rabbit trail, same thing. I was like, wait, De Palma, I'm not too familiar with him. And so I started looking and,
So
you know, I
you
love.
didn't know either.
Yeah, I didn't know either. I came across like I did just now.
I said I thought it was interesting.
But like, I love uncovering this like treasure trove of movies that more than likely I've never seen or I just haven't seen in a long, long time, you know? Especially those that sort of influence someone like Tarantino. Now, I'm not real sure. You know, I think Tarantino people, maybe there's people that exist that don't like his movies. And some have said, you know, like, well, and I mean, arguably I can understand if their perception or I guess their angle is they don't like him because he just quote unquote rips off, you know, movies from the 70s that he loved. To be honest with you, that's part of the reason why I love him. You know, like you go and you watch certain scenes and he will give these little homages to scenes that more than likely my generation and younger have never seen or don't remember. For example, there's a scene in Kill Bill when Beatrice is about to fight, oh gosh, I don't remember her character's name, but Lucy Liu. Okay, they're about to get into this katana fight.
You're talking about I mean, it's kind of a Kurosawa thing, right?
Yeah, well, maybe. But there's this water, I don't know what you would call it, but it's almost like a little water feature, okay? And it's like this little bamboo thing. It's like, book. And as the water fills up, it, you know, dips down and it causes this bamboo thing to make a sound.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I never thought anything of it. I thought, oh man, that's pretty cool. And it's interesting because you just hear that sound throughout the scene and it kind of sets up this sort of like, all is quiet elsewhere. And it's just like this central point audibly that, you know, it's just really cool. I always thought it was cool, but that's it.
Yeah.
Fast forward, like I'm talking 10, 15 years later. And I'm like, you know what? I'm in a Western kick. And so I went and I watched so many old school Westerns, including The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Yeah.
Now, The Good, and the Bad, and the Ugly is a perfect example of how movies in the 70s, if the main scene was a gunfight, there's going to be a 25 to 35-minute intro leading up to that where absolutely nothing happened.
Mm-hmm.
That's true about this movie, The Good, and Bad, and the Ugly, with Clint Eastwood. But it's actually artistically phenomenal. And I encourage you to go and watch it because it is about I might be exaggerating. I don't know how long it is actually, but it's very long where nothing happens. There's like a fly that lands on this like cracked earth, dry earth. You know, this place hadn't seen water in forever. And then you start to hear this like, doop, and it's the same kind of thing. It's like this little water well thing that's happening throughout that whole scene. I was like, oh man.
And it almost,
that's where you got it from.
Yeah, I had no idea about that, but it almost acts as like a really slow like metronome. So it almost like it doesn't just like keep the pace or like set the pace, but it sort of, I don't know, it sort of separates like your scenes. So it works as like a transition point almost.
I feel too like there's something that it does, you know, almost like in a Pavlov response kind of thing.
Right,
where
right,
it
right.
sets up this strange tension.
Yep.
Tension, you know?
Tension.
It sets up this strange tension. Hey guys, I need you to call. Hey man, I need you to go ahead and call 911.
Also, let's just call it.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
On June 14th, your favorite emotions are back on the big screen in Disney and Pixar's Inside Out 2.
It's time to greet your Team Riley. It's anger.
Let me at him.
Fear.
Safety checklist is complete.
Disgust. Ew. Sadness is in the house. Oh, no. Hello, I'm anxiety. I'm one of Riley's new emotions.
Disney and Pixar's Inside Out 2.
There's a part 2? We're going!
Rated PG. Parental guidance suggested. Only in theaters June 14th. Get tickets now.
Your brain needs support, and new Ollie Brainy Chews are a delightful way to take care of your cognitive health. Made with scientifically backed ingredients like Thai ginger, L-theanine, and caffeine, Brainy Chews support healthy brain function and help you find your focus, stay chill, or get energized. Be kind to your mind and get these nootropic chews at ollie.com. That's OLLY.com. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
It's a pretty cool place if you're a Martian.
Or a vampire.
You think you really know what's happening around here, don't you? We're fighters for truth, justice, and the American way.
Hey, this is Woody.
And this is Tyler. And you're listening to That Would Be Rad.
And now, back to our show. It just creates this environment where you're not really sure what's about to happen, but you feel like something should, and then it doesn't. But then finally it does. It's. I feel like it's a technique that a lot of more modern horror movies and stuff have started to kind of like incorporate into their themes. I mean, they do it with, you know, like every single trailer is like, you know, a clock. It's like, tick.
Yeah. Well, or the famous one now is like the little piano. Ding.
Yeah, right.
You know, kind of thing.
But it works, you know.
It does. No, I thought you were going to go into the, we are far, we've driven so far away from the dock.
So deep into D&D and just left like heck.
No, but I thought you were going to go into like the cherry blossom scene where, you know, she's fighting Lucy Liu and it's like you see like the blood and the snow and like that whole kind of thing. Which that's like super derivative of.
I mean, definitely Kurosawa.
It is Kurosawa.
But dude.
But isn't it, I think is it like Lady Snow?
Oh, yeah.
Snowblood or something?
Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. All that stuff, man. And like, here's the thing too. If anything, so again, going back to the fact that is somebody's gripe or complaint.
No, it's awesome.
Or source of negativity for Tarantino. To me, it is doing something that it's like an honoring of those greats that went before him.
It's an homage.
That influenced him so much. And here's why I think it's important. Because it then interests me to find out, okay, he got that from somewhere. Oh, let me go watch those movies. You watch those movies and you're like, oh my God. And it introduces you to these insanely incredible stories and films that you never would have taken the time to watch, you know? And like that one's a great example. Did you know this though, dude? Have I already talked about this?
I don't.
The blood spray stuff?
Oh yeah, that's my favorite thing about old Japanese movies.
Okay. And okay, so if you watch any of the Tarantino stuff, but like, I don't know, so many movies now, if somebody like, you know, gets sliced by a sword, all of a sudden there's this just showering
like blood spurt
of blood just like spraying everywhere and just like, you know, at such a crazy rate. Did you know why that happened in the first original movie that ever happened in?
I think it was Seven Samurai, right?
Oh man, I don't even know.
I think it was Kurosawa.
So it was an effects malfunction.
Yeah.
And because of that, because that movie was so like highly thought of, every single person after that just straight copied it.
Yeah.
Because they just thought it was the coolest thing ever. And I mean, I agree, dude.
Yeah. It's so fascinating how, you know, it is amazing to see that like how something that like accidental, and I think that's like just the absolute beauty of art and like, you know, within different mediums, you know, these like little accidental things that how, you know, within several years that accidental thing becomes like the standard. I just think that's so cool.
Yeah, and how like far those influential tentacles reach, because like even now in modern manga, for example.
Oh, okay. So I take it.
They depict that.
I take it back. It was Kurosawa, but it was a movie called Sanjuro.
Okay, and that came out before, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I think I knew that.
Well, and I think it's cool too because, you know, you see like the blood spatter, which you want to say splatter, but I think it's technically spatter, which is kind of.
Well, it depends what you're talking about. 'Cause like if the blood is actually splattering, like if it's splattered,
I'm just saying like
that's one thing. But spatter is what you look for, like you know,
on the wall.
Yeah.
And that's what I was going to say. That's like such a trope now. And I mean, that's very sort of Hitchcockian also, that idea that like you're not really seeing the thing, you're seeing the byproduct of that thing. So you would never see like the head get cut off. Well, Tarantino you would, but you wouldn't see like the head get cut off. You would just see like the blood spatter like shoot against the wall.
Yeah.
Or like the taciturn.
Yeah, to me, those kind of like decisions, man, in so many ways make it just, I don't know, better. Like same thing with like Lucy Liu. And you know, if you haven't seen Kill Bill, I mean, it's been out for like 25 years or something at this point. So I'm sorry, but
is it really 20? No way, dude.
I mean, something, dude. Maybe 20 years.
Oh my gosh, we're getting old.
Yeah, no, dude. But she like runs past him, or she runs past Lucy Liu, and you don't know what's happened, and they're both kind of like stumbling around, and then you just see like this spray of blood like on the snow, and you're like, oh man, whose was it? You know, that element of suspense.
Yeah.
It's just everything's so smart about it, man, and all the composition of every single scene. I love the dialogue.
Yeah.
Well, it's just great, man.
And I mean, that may be a derivative of like some of the samurai movies and stuff, but that's also similar to, well, I mean, it is interesting because like Seven Samurai turns into the Western, the Magnificent Seven. And so like it is cool how they sort of inspire each other, but I think it's interesting. And I wonder now, I mean, I've never even thought of this until now, but I wonder if the Western sort of genre took that from the Kurosawa stuff where they do the same thing where it's like you have your gunfight and then like it doesn't directly show like, oh, it blew this guy away. You're just like waiting, and then all of a sudden like the guy's hat falls off or he just falls backwards. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of hard for me to picture. I wonder how that pitch meeting went, you know? Like did they just like Xerox copy and just make the dudes like cowboys? Or were they like, listen, there's this incredible film, and I think we could do the same story, but instead of, you know, samurai, let's do it with something that the folks here can relate to a little easier and make it, you know, a Western.
Yeah. I mean, and at the end of the day, it is, you know, it's such a, I mean, we're talking sort of in ways of giving these Japanese old samurai movies like the credit, but in reality, it's like it is that very like Joseph Campbell, like hero's journey. We're getting the gang together. Like it's such a timeless trope that the like classic like revenge tale. I mean, we're such a sucker for that.
Oh, man.
It'll
me specifically.
It'll always be cool.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, it's part of the reason why I loved Punisher so much. I feel like, I don't know, it's so much fun to see someone that's quote unquote heroic kind of not be as honorable, I guess, as Batman,
Yeah.
Someone like Batman, like he finally, through sort of the course of time, I think in the latest movie with Robert Paddington Bear, kind of we get to see that evolution of him sort of figuring out what exactly justice means.
Yeah.
And so that Batman character is sort of the guy who would never purposely kill a bad guy, right? He wants to bring him to justice. He wants them to, despite how corrupt the system is, he at least thinks that's the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. Whereas the Punisher's like, I'm going to take it in my own hands and rid the world of these bad guys. And for whatever reason, I always thought that was so cool.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's classic. Although I will say, like, since we have the internet, and this is my get off my lawn moment, but I do think we're kind of in a weird place, and I'm like a huge Batman fan. Like I'm in my, in the studio, it's like wall to wall original art of like Batman. Just because number one, he's so cool in that sort of transient way where every single artist that you like can do a Batman and he's going to look completely different. And, is he going to be Gotham by Gaslight version? Is he going to be Dark Knight Returns version? Is he going to be this? But all that to say, I think Batman is an interesting case of where, when he first kind of came out in like Detective Comics, he obviously his thing is he doesn't use guns, typically. I know there's been a few like moments, and there's like a famous cover like on one of the earlier issues, like comic issues where he has like a gun holster on. But, that's kind of his thing. And so I do think it's interesting, since we're so sort of desensitized to like violence and murder, that even like this character who's like he's known as like the creature of the night and like that kind of thing, like he's this like dark and brooding like anti-hero kind of thing. It is interesting that we're in a place and time where, because he doesn't use guns or like choose to like kill people like directly, it's like that dynamic is like shifted so much that we're just sort of like, is that kind of weak that he doesn't do that, because there's a lot of people who are like straight up like, well, yeah, it's like he's kind of a dumb character now because he doesn't use guns.
What? Really?
Yeah. There's a lot of that.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow. Yeah. No, I mean, thank you. I guess like John Wick and like I get that, but I think that's the person that thinks that needs to read Death Note, because that sort of moral. And don't watch the stupid live action. Read the.
Did you finish it? How was it?
No, didn't. Got it, like right after I text you.
Mm-hmm.
I pushed the eject button immediately. So terrible.
It
was more infuriating now that like I've read the whole series. But ultimately, like that's the moral dilemma, dude. You've got this kid who accidentally stumbles upon this power to, kill anyone in any way. All he has to do is write the name down.
Yeah,
and picture their face. And there's a bunch of other rules, but that's the gist.
Yeah,
that he decides to use it for good. And here's a little twist for you. Mm-hmm. His dad is the detective on the case. So, and which is kind of also a classic trope. But anyway,
real quick before we head back to the doc, do you know this is such a cool little piece of like trivia. So do you know about the director of John Wick? Do you know what his whole deal is?
Mm-mm.
So the way that he kind of rose like, in his like sphere of influence or whatever, I guess, he was the original key stunt double for Keanu Reeves in The Matrix.
Oh man.
Yeah. And then he would go on to write or to direct all 3 of the John Wick films.
Equals, and I think there's 4 now.
Well, yeah, 4, yeah.
He's just like, man, I don't really look like anyone else. I'm kind of in any other circle would maybe be, I look like a bum. What's a great way for me to, keep a job? I know. I'll write, which by the way, dude, and I mean, I know I'm kind of saying it like in a humorous way. Brilliant.
Oh, yeah.
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 I mean, a lot of people say I look like Brad Pitt, but with dark hair. And maybe I just need to write a movie for him and then the stunt double.
I mean, yeah.
No, but in all seriousness, it's like, dude, he kind of cracked the code here. He wrote this, because I can't really say incredible story. It's pretty basic, but it is a revenge tale and it's entertaining.
Oh,
and it's
yeah.
good. And all the while, he's like, yeah, dude, I've created this really cool character. It's not too different from Neo. Dude, he guaranteed he started writing it day one of shooting.
Yeah.
The Matrix, because he's like, what if it wasn't Neo, but it was a guy named John Wick?
It's me.
Yeah, and then he's just constantly got that job. Plus, hey,
Yeah.
boom.
That's weird that you say that people say that you look like Brad Pitt, because
You look like the female version of Yoda, I think is what we've been able to uncover.
I've always thought you looked like an older Marlon Brando.
God.
Speaking of Marlon Brando.
Dude, the best is like the older, like the dude was so good looking when he was
So
like
good
young.
looking, yeah.
And then like by the time it was like the Island of Dr. Moreau, you're like, man, what did they, is he wearing like some sort of like prosthetic suit?
Yeah.
Nope. He was really let himself go.
Yeah, he did. By the way, have you seen the new pictures?
New pictures. He's dead, right?
Of Billy Zane?
No. Good God.
Dude,
what?
I'm telling you, look it up right now. Billy Zane in this new like biopic of Marlon Brando. It is incredible how much he looks like him.
Okay. Wow.
Amazing.
Dude. I thought you were going to say he really let himself go.
No.
After the success of Titanic.
I mean,
it was fried peanut butter sandwich after one,
no.
Jesus.
Is that not crazy though?
Dude, that's insane. He looks just like him.
Yeah, it's wild.
On the day of my daughter's wedding.
Oh, are you doing Zootopia?
No, dude, that is from Godfather. You see?
Well, no, I understand.
The guy eats this weird boxed, he calls it pasta. He calls it some sort of thing. And then
it's a Sicilian.
And then he thinks I'm cool. Also, you have little kids, so I get it. But, dude, I love that, man.
No, in Zootopia, there's...
I know, I've seen it.
Yeah, there's like the total...
The gangster.
Yeah, the gangster. What is he? He's like a possum?
Like a shrew or something?
I think it's a possum.
He's like, no, he's not a possum.
Probably possum. Anyway, let's get back to the doc. Tell us about D&D.
We will return after these messages.
There's something out there waiting for us. And it ain't no dead.
Hey, this is Bryce Johnson from the Bigfoot Collectors Club, and you're listening to Tyler and Woody on That Would Be Rad, because that is rad.
Let's get it.
Yeah, well, I mean, ultimately, dude, so not only does it take so much time to sort of like prepare, the key is, it's impossible to prepare for every scenario, because what I'm trying to present to them, and I feel like the way that a player can feel immersed in this world is for it to feel endless and like there's so many different possibilities. So I've kind of, in a way, several sessions, different times, just let them just go. Here's what I found out, though, in this experiment that is our group, but also just this in general.
Mm-hmm.
If you give the players complete freedom with no sort of narrative or anything that's really going to drive their characters to do anything, all they're really going to do is walk around and kill things and people and destroy everything.
Yeah.
Or they're just going to be like walking around aimlessly. So I figured...
It's kind of the Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah, a little.
Thing, where you have full agency to do anything you want, this sort of sandbox, open world. And it's like, let's just do stuff, which I will say I have leaned into that
Yeah.
more than I
and it's fun and entertaining, but only to a point, you know? Because like, how many times are you going to dedicate, 4 hours late at night, you know what I mean, to just walk around Woody's saying, well, this room has, you know what I mean? It's fun-ish, but after a while, it's like, come on, we got to do something.
And this is sort of a lead up to Woody's new announcement. He's putting out a book called Guardrails.
No.
Woody Brown.
No, it's not guardrails. What it is I want to at least have there be an underlying mission, a purpose for what you guys kind of need to do in order to further
your main quest,
the advancement of the story. Time is not standing still, so if you don't choose to go in that direction, which you totally can, things will happen anyway, which to me also adds another element of like realness to it. So anyhow,
and also in particular, this particular quest, like we're all like the Ion Terra stuff, like we're already in this sort of bizarro world where like magic affects things differently, and it's like, it truly is like a homebrew thing, and then like there's like some weird sort of like, it's classic like Woody and Tyler conversation on this podcast where we're going to introduce weird times, jumps, weird time movement kind of stuff like that. There's going to be weird dimensional stuff. There's going to be weird like dream stuff. So, I would say there's no better scenario or no better like quest that I've ever played, like besides this one. Like it's so good.
Wow, man. Thank you, dude. I also selfishly, I like to build, this tabletop terrain. Again, if you're unfamiliar with that, go over to our Instagram. I've got some pictures of it. And by the time you hear this, I'll have posted this sort of Aztec-inspired temple that I created. And I think I've posted, like the cave entrance with that like weird like moss overgrown skull and all that. So all that takes time. And because of that, it's like, I kind of want these guys to go here because I spent time building this thing. Yeah. And in any case, so I spend, one of the things when I first got started sort of building terrain, I utilize it as sort of like a, artistic outlet for myself, something that I can do like when the kids are in bed, and then I just like building stuff, One of the first things that I wanted to build, I was like, man, how cool would it be to build like this Aztec-style temple?
Ziggurat.
It's going to be like my swan song, basically. I'm pretty sure I wrote that down somewhere. And so I created this thing. I wanted to create a part of this sort of continent that these guys land on session 1 of our adventure to be one where there's a large part of it that's just straight up jungle. And I knew the second, first off, I can't believe you guys didn't guess it, but I knew the second that they started to explore this jungle at some point, they're going to come across this temple. And I wanted to, make it a sort of, speaking of Raiders of the Lost Ark, I wanted to make it sort of like an Indiana Jones style hunt for some sort of artifact that was powerful. Maybe they were going to get some wisdom from kind of these abandoned sort of temple hallways and in the dungeon of all this. So I spent, many, many hours creating this and making this physical temple and then creating like, how are they going to get in it? Well, I wanted to start that differently too. Well, it's going to make that decision for them. It's going to be trapped. Basically, they go down this long chute into the sort of, I don't know, the central heart of this thing.
It's like the slide in Goonies getting down into the pirate ship.
Because also, I've noticed, I don't want to say guardrails, but sometimes I have to like create a scenario that makes the decision for them so they can just get sprung into action. And to me, that's exciting too. That's where the adventure begins kind of thing.
Also, all of the props and these little buildings and these things that Woody builds, they're all for sale. So if you like one, hit him up.
Well, I don't know. I might have to sell this temple now that you guys kind of messed it all up. No, I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to sell them. But anyway.
We're trying to get Woody to sell them because they're stunning.
Thank you.
Like, man. Legit. Like, and I sort of identify as like the artist of the group, because that's just what I do for a living and all. But like, I am a little jealous because they are so, if you've seen my art, I'm very detail oriented. And these are like equally as detail oriented, but 3D. So
yeah, I mean,
amazing.
it's so much fun making, dude, because I don't know, I love all of the details. And there's this chaos aspect of it too, to where I'm applying sort of like the texture of the stone, and it's never going to be in the same as, you know, another piece that I make. And I just love the way once I paint it, how it comes out it's just so much fun.
And also what's cool about it is like, literally I'll be like, hey man, we got a new TV. First question from Woody's mouth, can I get some of that styrofoam?
Yeah, dude.
It's all made out of trash.
I am not a cheapskate necessarily, but I love being resourceful. That's it, man. We said it at the same time.
We did.
I have a closet full of
demons,
trash, basically, like old styrofoam, old cardboard boxes. And of course, I do have some crafting materials like, you know, wooden popsicle sticks of various sizes and paints and all that. But I wanted to use this stuff that essentially, you know, like an Amazon box, dude. I paid for the item that it came in, or I mean, that came in it, but otherwise you're just sending it away. So why not make buildings out of this stuff? Or, you know, and so I love building these sets and all that. To say I created this, I mean, when I say multi-room dungeon, dude, I borrowed from all these different dangerous, cool aspects of different adventures and all this. And every single room was populated with like traps, things to figure out, not all deadly. History, you know, they walked through this area that they were able to kind of like learn about the people that essentially were guarding whatever is at the end of this temple that they didn't get to, because out of like, we'll say, and I'm being conservative here, 40 rooms. Now, this was a dungeon that I designed that was going to take multiple sessions to get through. Maybe even by the end of it, you would even level up.
Never going to happen.
They get to room 5. All right? Room 5 is, there's a doorway, okay? Let me explain it to them. Not exactly how I would explain it to you, but essentially you get there, there are these bronze, like beaten bronze doors that are in front of these characters, okay?
Shout out to Tartaria.
Oh, God. And there's, you know, like a, hold on. God, now I'm going to have to, you see there? Hold on. Let me read exactly what it says, because it's pretty, that's the Chamber of Prophecy, the Hall of Thrashing Canes, which you guys got through pretty easily.
Did you literally name all 40 rooms?
Well, some of them already had names, because again, I borrowed it from some of them I borrowed from a module. Here we go.
Which, by the way, that is one thing too for like our like older D&D folks is I do feel like back in the old days, like because the game was so centered around like dungeon crawls and dungeon crawling that like you had these dungeons that were so much bigger than they are now. It was like players played just to literally go through dungeons.
Yeah, yep. And I mean, I think there's some good to that. Also, you know, I think sometimes it's fun to just kind of have like a 10 room and then get on out kind of thing. Okay. So they're here and there's this glyph. And dude, luckily, and again, once I find out what all the players are and what they can do and their abilities, I want to highlight those abilities and not make something impossible, right? So our buddy Dan, his character, can't speak every language, but he can read and understand every language. So these guys are in the very at the very bottom of this ancient temple, okay, of these people that have thrived for thousands and thousands of years because of their ways and their teachings and whatever. And there's this room, and it's locked, and there is something that's inscribed on it that says, here lies, you know, this guy, master of the others, who is like the wind and night. Okay? This is outside the door. I also need to preface this with just not even 60 seconds before they get to this door and read those words, they find these jars outside of this room in a little like alcove that are sealed with like beeswax.
Like a paraffin kind of,
their idea to open it, rather than use something sharp, is to just hold a candle close to it to melt the wax.
As you do.
I honestly, man, was just being super friendly and kind of just didn't want you guys to die right at that moment, because what was inside the jars is this like highly flammable oil that is used to fuel the lamps and stuff throughout the dungeon. So,
and it's in like a tiny room of all these like
there's
barrels.
6 huge, not barrels,
or
but
like
jars, big jars.
vases.
Like I would say like the size of
like a vase.
Yeah, okay, sure, a vase, whatever. Okay?
Just say it. Say it like a vase.
Like a vase.
There it is.
And they're using candle. And so like immediately whenever I'm like, well, now how far away are you holding the candle from the wax? And they're like, at a safe distance.
Double down.
By the way, what the heck does that even mean? So I was being nice. I'm like, okay, you notice the wax melt, but immediately recognize the liquid inside is some sort of oil that could be, flammable. They're like, whoa, whew, okay. Now we're at like however long that explanation took. I then say, now, guys, this is just a reminder. We're only on this is actually room 6. But it's the 5th room that you went to.
Right.
I'm not giving away any hints that there's other.
The mud room, it was in there, wasn't it?
No.
I knew it.
What? Mud room? You mean where the hermit crab thing was?
No, the other room that we didn't choose. It was like covered in mud.
Well, it was covered in, mud-ish, yeah. You talking about the walls? Yeah.
And the floors.
Yeah, there are a lot of rooms that weren't safe. And I won't say that one that was covered in what you perceive to be mud wasn't safe, but it's all good. Anyhow, they go, and right before, like, they even read the words, and before I even describe the doors, I say, guys, now I'm just going to remind you. I think it's going to be in your best interest to be careful and really kind of describe exactly what you're doing to me, because I'm not going to give you like second chances, anything like that. If you say, well, I'm going to open the door, I want you to tell me how you're trying, and I want you to just be aware to be cautious. Yeah. Dude, phew, man, got out of that one. We almost like blew up the whole, we almost died immediately.
We had a good laugh about it.
Ha. Before you are 2 brown doors, or 2 double doors of bronze with glyphs worked into their faces, And they're like, oh, okay, cool. And I'm like, what do you want to do? Dan says, well, I want to see if it's trapped. So he makes a roll. The roll that I configured for that was actually pretty high for him to succeed. It was a 20.
Yeah, dude.
Which is like the best. I mean, it's not the best, but he has high scoring stuff. And that's just to perceive if it's trapped. Now, realistically, dude, this is the other part about being realistic. You can't look at a door and say, yep, it's trapped.
I think if you're a rogue.
He can describe, but he can describe how he's looking. That's what I meant by all that. He can say, well, I want to look into the keyhole and see if he'd have done that, dude. He would have seen a strange glint of glass on the other side of this door. Then he would have physically been able to say, okay, something's going on here. Let's keep investigating. I would have let everybody investigate. Instead, these freaking clowns are just like, kick it down.
But also, before you get into what happened, I want to preface that I'm typically and traditionally pretty cautious. Like, I'm the guy that gets made fun of because I'm super observant, super perceptive, and I'm always sort of like sliding this arrow tip around like any sort of crack in the wall or crack in the like tile or whatever, just in case there's like either A, a booby trap, or B, like some sort of like treasure or clue hidden in it. So I'm always made fun because I do that. However, because of this particular like scenario and situation, and according to our backstories, I've gotten to where I'm really trying to lean into sort of my character's backstory in a way of like, even though I wouldn't do this naturally, it's like I'm becoming sort of manic because of my backstory. So I'm less and less cautious and more, sort of chaotic.
It's another kind of vengeful story. Like, he hasn't been able to achieve vengeance yet for in short. And so he's becoming more and more just like enraged and less cautious and stuff, like, be pretty natural. Like, the details don't matter as much because he recognizes this, sort of overarching ticking clock that's
right. And anything that we're doing is kind of like secondary to, like, in my mind, like, oh, well, I have to finish this goal.
Yeah.
And so it's sort of like, let's just rush through the other things,
Yeah, coupled with you guys haven't really gotten hurt as a group much. Like you like, and that's part, well, I mean, your character definitely did. But like as a group, now you're pretty powerful.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of healing capabilities. You got a lot of stuff. This is like really the first time you've really done a dungeon dive together in this campaign. And so everybody's just like amped up, right?
Oh, yeah.
So they kick the door down. Hold on. The other side.
Hold on, before you do that, why don't you give like a breakdown of like, just real quick, like who we all, like what our characters are. And
okay. Yeah. Tyler, and this would be true, I think if there's ever a trivia TV show that we go on, and the trivia question happens to be, hey, I'm just going to throw a random scenario out there. You guys are starting a Dungeons and Dragons game. Tyler has to pick the type of character he's going to choose. What is it? Write it down for $1 million. I'm going to write down Elf Ranger because that's what Tyler loves. Now, let me just throw, what would I choose, Tyler? See if you can get it right.
So me, I'm always a very effeminate.
No. I meant, what would you choose?
No. I know. But I'm a very effeminate, skinny little elf, kind of like Poison Elves, 80s style.
Okay.
If you can imagine that. Woody is always going to be somebody who's below 4 or even 3 feet tall and somehow has healing capabilities, but also probably leans into having some sort of electricity power. And there he is.
Yeah, man. So I'm typically a dwarf cleric. And then, well, no, man. There's just something, dude, I think it's because of the Salvatore. R.A. Salvatore.
It's probably like
novels.
Salvatore.
Bruner, like, yeah, Salvatore. Bruner is one of my favorite characters ever, and he's the dwarf character there, and his evolution and the way that he shows love is very just like, it's just so cool, man. And
he's like the red.
Love it so much.
Bearded.
Anyway, yeah, red bearded dwarf. I mean, he's like what the artwork in any of the newer D&D modules, like,
or any of the
based on him. Battle Hammers.
Any of the Hobbit so cool. or Fellowship of the Ring stuff too.
Right. Where was I?
Tonight's program has been brought to you by
America's future can be determined by our dreams and our visions.
It was very intense, bright light.
For over 200 years, there have been reports of giant man-like creatures
from another dimension, another world. I don't know.
The most intriguing mystery on the North American continent.
This is Joshua Cutchin, and you're at my home for weirdness. That would be rad.
Okay, so the other characters in the group. So Tyler is a ranger. He has a twin sister who is a druid. We're not going to get into their backstories.
Yeah,
it's kind of complicated. And then we've got Dan, who is playing the race is called Turtle, and basically it's just like, imagine a Ninja Turtle. And instead of being a ninja, he is a warlock.
Yeah.
And
he's basically cool, like a pirate. He's like
pirate background, so he's like been a sailor. Super cool.
And he can like create out of like energy, basically a triton. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. And then you've got Luke, who is the race is called Goliath, so they come from like a giant sort of heritage. That is, until the Smithsonian got after him. But anyway.
Oh, you better believe it. He's like 12 foot tall.
Yeah, he's a big, humongous barbarian. Luke always plays barbarians too. He's like, man, I don't really know the rules of magic. It sounds too complicated. I just want to be able to beat up bad guys.
Which is kind of funny because out of any of us, he has the most like abilities and like actions than all of us. Like,
oh, dude, when I played a barbarian in Dan's thing, it is complicated, but it's just so much fun, dude, because you can just tear stuff up. All right, and then you've got Brad, who, dude, Brad, he's with Soza Bear Films too, and it's funny too. Like, I started thinking about it, and all of us, in some way, are artists. You've got Luke and Brad, who are the founders of Sozo Bear. Luke was a musician as well. And then you've got Ellis, he's like a 3D modeler, graphic guy who also works with them at Sozo. And then you got Dan, who
like
films,
filmographer.
Yeah, filmography and stuff.
Yep.
And so it's like we all have that creative mind. And so add that to the pressure of me having to write an adventure that's going to be entertaining for all of us.
Well, and not only that, but Ellis has also been.
Oh, he's the OG dude. He's the one that taught me how to play. He was he was the DM for us.
He's been like a DM for like, I mean, like for us, you know, we sort of stopped playing in like middle or high school. I think for him, he just kept on going.
Yeah, and I had never played at all.
Yeah,
you know, because my mom said that is of the devil. So anyway, Brad is just, first off, he's a hilarious guy, and his brand of humor is,
oh god,
it's that genius level thing to where you don't know if he's kidding, or if he's just hilarious, or did he even hear you? You know what I mean?
I think it's very like Tom Green or what is it, Tim Robbins?
Yeah, yep.
It's just this. You never really know. Like, is he aware of how funny he is, or is he completely like in control and knows every move he's making?
Yeah,
like,
I think he knows, man, and that he's just a genius, dude. He's just so funny. But anyway, he plays a halfling, and the only reason D&D calls them halflings is because of copyright. Okay, he's basically just about the same as a hobbit. Okay, they don't have the hairy feet and stuff. I think they removed that.
I was going to say, I think that's the only thing too. Yeah.
Very, very small in stature, tiny little thing, and he is the rogue or thief, character. No, but he's the master of disguise too. So he took like a trait where he can basically make disguises and pass off as, whatever. And again, like the freedom of being a DM is like, sometimes someone will come up with this like idea and they're like, what do you think about this? And if it's like, if they present it in a way that's like, man, holy cow, that is hilarious and or that sounds awesome. I'm like, yeah, dude, who cares? Yeah. So what's great about him is he will oftentimes, like what we've all kind of come together to decide just because of how hilarious it would be, is if like he is a master of disguise and can fool anyone except for us.
All of us.
Or the players.
Yeah.
And that his like, the things that he uses to make his disguises are all like homemade and hilarious. For example, he oftentimes will be like a horse, and to other people, they're like, oh man, it looks like a pony. And then like he describes his costume as like he used like a half of a coconut for like hooves and stuff.
Like Monty Python.
I mean, this guy is so like invested
just a
in
horse
the character,
mask.
dude, that like he's like looking at rules on his phone and he's using his hand as if it was a hoof, dude. But nobody notices, and he's doing it all night for like hours. And finally, we're like, what is he doing over there? And then just die laughing because he's so committed to this like one moment that's just going to be one laugh. And he's just doing it forever, dude. Oh my gosh.
God.
Anyway,
but real quick, that idea is so funny that like us as the party, we view him as having like the shittiest disguise ever. And it's like coconuts and like a rubber horse mask. But everybody else in that world sees him like 100% pony.
Right. Exactly.
God, it's fun.
It's so funny, dude. Anyway, so that's what we've got as a group. And they all have different strengths. Like our buddy Ellis, who's the druid, his character, she is really powerful. She's got like healing capabilities, but also like really cool spells. So it's utilitarian and also damage dealing. And then Tyler is just able to like get these people through these jungles and stuff so well. And eventually, whenever they get into other different types of terrain and stuff, they can find things easier and all that.
Well, and I have 10 bonus actions.
Yeah, 10 bonus actions. Well, anyway, here they are. They've fallen into this ancient temple. They've kind of made it through a couple different sketchy rooms. There's also, by the way, poison gas that they're breathing that's
the whole
taking
time.
damage. I've got that, dude, and I set that up. Oh, I just put this, I have this big, it's like the size of my hand. What is it called, man? What is it?
No, it's like a like hourglass. Like
hourglass. I couldn't think of
sands
it.
to the hour.
Yeah, exactly. And I just brought it downstairs and set it in front of my DM screen.
Mm-hmm.
And these guys sit down, they settle into their thing, they're getting everything out, and they're like, whoa, what's that for? I don't say a word. And then I just start running it whenever they get in. And they're like, and I just like flip it a couple times, you know? And they're like, what the crap is that about? And then finally I'm like, everybody takes 1 point of damage, poison, you know, because of
No. You were like, okay, guys, go ahead and roll.
Like D3. Yeah, that's right.
And then you flip it again.
Yeah. So anyway, there's that aspect of the ticking clock that's also causing them to, you know, make a little, you know, do things kind of faster. Mm-hmm. So that, again, I'm trying to like move them through this thing without them just being like, now what happens if I lick the stone? Does that tell me anything? You know?
Wait, what is the joke about? Is it Dan's character?
No, dude, it was my first character ever. Are you talking about stones? I've got stone sense. That thing that I do?
Yeah.
God. Hold on. I'll get back to that. Okay. So these guys are standing in front of these copper doors, okay? They've almost blown themselves up.
Yeah.
I've told them.
We did blow
yourself
ourselves up.
Yeah. You would have blown yourself up.
Yeah.
I said, guys, I really want to remind you, be cautious. Tell me exactly what you want to do. And then, you know, whatever. Okay. Boom. They go to kick the door open. And here's the thing, too. This trap exists. And I was like, they'll never set it off. But you know what? I'm going to write a whole thing just in case they do. Pacing-wise, this was getting close to the end of the night anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, you should see it in my DM notes. So I actually use Google Docs because I can like hyperlink different things if I want, you know. So I've got this and it just says, dude, it just says sleep gas and then a link to 5,000 Years alt version. So here's what happens. They bust down these doors, which triggers this canister of sleeping gas that breaks on the floor. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden I tell them this sphere breaks. This green swirling gas just fills the room and surrounds them, and each of them drift off to sleep. Mm-hmm. And I say, after some time, you wake up. It doesn't really feel like that long, of time has passed. You look around, you notice a very thick layer of dust. I'm not going to go through the whole explanation here.
Yeah.
But bottom line is, they've been asleep. Once they figure it all out, they go back to their home base. Everything's kind of rusted, and the land is just like blackened and
it's like post-apocalyptic.
Post-apocalyptic. Dystopian. And they find this little like auto-gnome robot character.
Which, by the way, that's one thing you didn't mention before, but Woody also put in place these basically like Return to Oz, like TikTok.
Yeah.
So it's very steampunk-esque, but they're ran sort of by magic. So
yeah. And the reason why I did was because I didn't want to have to deal with any flirting of the. I'm dead serious, dude. I was thinking to myself, like, what's a way to like keep these guys from just being like overtly like sexualized whenever I introduce these NPCs?
It didn't stop.
I know that it's true. It didn't. It didn't stop us.
Anyway. And also, real quick, Brad, because of his like horse stuff, has now like created some sort of relationship. Like a filly named Darlene.
Anyway, they get back. They're all just kind of like, they don't know how long that they've been away. They just realize, observing the land and how destroyed it is. Mm-hmm. They come back. They actually teleport back, so they don't get to see a bunch of it. But they get back to the home base, another big, huge piece. I don't think I've posted a picture of that I made.
Lodge?
Yeah, the lodge. They get back there and they realize that it's just like broken up. There's like plants growing out of it. There's sections of the roof that have been, caved in. Mm-hmm. And they're like, what's happened? They go in, they find this auto gnome. She just got a little bit of juice left. And she is just like surprised to see him. She expresses they didn't know where they had disappeared to. They feared that, that they'd been taken, that they'd become part of this army that invaded. And these guys, I was waiting for this question. And someone says, wait a minute, how long have we been gone? And she says, 5,000 years. And
boom.
That's how we closed the session. And these guys, when I tell you that their mind was blown, I wish to God, if anything ever had been filmed, that reaction could have been filmed, because these guys were like, what?
Yeah, it was absolutely mind-blowing, because, I mean, I just feel like it's just not a trope that you...
Here we go.
What the heck is
just
happening?
Knocking stuff over there.
I mean, there has been some weird stuff in the house.
Don't talk about it out loud.
Jeez. Anyway, we'll talk about it later.
Here's the thing, too, real quick. Now, keep in mind, I just saved these guys from like total party kill with fire bombs that they were about to light. And even whenever I was putting this piece in, I was like, man, I don't really, maybe 100 years, but I wanted it to be so shocking and so like, what? That I felt like any time shorter than, I mean, to be fair, maybe 3,000 would have done, but 5,000 years is just like a punch to the face.
It sure was.
Imagine, dude, just for a second, best friends listening, that you accidentally, like, somehow were put into a trance, or like, thinking about it in terms of like even cryogenics and stuff. Mm-hmm. You go to sleep and 5,000 years have passed. You haven't aged. Nothing looks different on you. Every single person, place, anything, gone, dude. Everyone you loved, everyone you knew, gone. Even 100 years would be shocking. 5,000, though?
Yeah. Well, that's what I was saying. It was so shocking because, I don't know, that trope of like the sort of post-apocalyptic like future, that dystopian sort of thing is like, it's just something that doesn't go with like fantasy, D&D, like role-playing. And so when you said that, it was like, what does that even mean? It was hard to like wrap your head around it. And then my character, sort of like we've said, there's this sort of, which I know it can be cliche. It's not nearly as cliche as it sounds, but there is this sort of like vengeance thing where, like we were saying, my motivation is like tracking down these other characters. And so now it's like, what does that look like? Does that mean that because they've been taking out and I wasn't able to have this sort of like vengeance moment, does that mean that I just completely derail? And so it makes you question like everything.
Yeah. And it's cool too, because like, again, I can't believe I committed to it, honestly.
Me neither.
Because like that, even just as the DM, I don't know. It's kind of like this strange, almost baptism of the character progression, because then it's like everything that was motivating them previously in terms of their own personal motivations prior to like sort of being thrust into this adventure, landing on this continent, trying to quote unquote save the world from something. They knew there was this impending doom. They just didn't know really, they couldn't identify who it was yet. Now they know it. And presumably they essentially failed, right?
Yeah.
If their mission was to, potentially save the universe or save the world from destruction through this like prophecy that they'd learned about, they failed. It came true. The bad guy came, killed everything.
Yeah.
And these guys just woke up in this world. I can't lie. I've been tempted many, many times to just be like, in a 2 or 3 months after going through all this, and then they woke up. I'm telling you right now, I actually asked Anne, hey, do you think that would be kind of cool? And she's like, no, it would be such a letdown.
See, that's interesting to hear, because I've been thinking, especially with all of our St. Elsewhere talk, that you would eventually kind of throw that on us. However, because like we said in the beginning, there is a lot of like sort of time-esque stuff and dimensional stuff and dream kind of stuff. Like, I feel like there's still a possibility that...
Let me just put it this way, dude. And because I'm not going to tell you anything.
Yeah.
I'll say that what I've created from this event is better. Like, here's what's cool about being a DM, dude. Because you guys did that. And of course, yes, I was prepared for it to just be like almost a dead end that night. Luckily, timing-wise, it worked out. And I didn't have to be like, well, it's 7:30, guys. Have a good rest of your evening. What I've created since branched off into something that is better than I could have ever imagined previously.
Yeah.
And it's going to end up being incredible, dude. And it's going to have aspects of all the stuff that we always kind of talk about and obsess over. So it's going to be incredible, but it's not going to be like it was all a dream, because Stephen King's just done that too many times to us, you know?
Yeah. One thing, too, that I think is really cool, and, you know, this kind of goes back to us all being artists, Woody and I both being artists in our own right kind of thing, is this idea that, like, I don't know, I feel like a lot of the stuff you hear us talk about on the show is finding its way into this sort of the campaign. And I think I think it's cool that, like, and it's something like, I don't know that I've ever heard of this, but, like, for example, like the ziggurat that we showed up to is like straight up like South American, like Mayan or Olmec or like something like that, which I've never seen that in like a D&D.
Yeah, I mean, there is like Tomb of Annihilation and the Lost Shrine of Tamachian, which the Lost Shrine is really kind of where I got a lot of the stuff for the original sort of like first, 10 to 15 rooms. Because again, dude, it's written so well that I thought, this is really cool. I'm going to change a lot of it, including like the culture of the people. I made it to where they've been sort of guarding against the prophecy of this happening for thousands of years.
Man, that's pretty cool to think of. Like, what if the Mayans, like these soldiers are like there to protect the ziggurat from the Mayan prophecy? Like, it's kind of like that, which is like
if
really
only you would have gotten deeper into it, maybe you would have found out. So anyway, the cool thing is,
are they dead?
Well, you're going to have to find out. Also, by the way, before they left, they were like, well, I mean, we're already in the room. Let's see what's in this dadgum, crypt.
Yeah.
Well, they find this character that is essentially... Wait, let me just ask you this, because I don't know. I don't remember from that evening, because I was so just sort of shocked myself. What is he? What did you guys find in there? Because if you don't know right away, then I'm not going to say.
I mean, in my mind, I know it was like sort of looked more like a Mayan thing, but for some reason in my head, I'm thinking almost like Dracula.
Yep, perfect.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool. He's a vampire.
Yeah.
That had been placed there using some sort of... Here's the other part that I love. D&D players just want treasure. They just want to steal everything. Right?
Everything.
And so you put a bunch of cool, shiny stuff inside of this thing, and then just have one of them be the thing. That if they take it, this creature becomes animated. And that was this jade mask that's on its face. Yeah. Now, keep in mind, too, written on the outside of this thing were even more glyphs warning these guys not to mess around with it. One of them being, defilers, now you shall join me in my eternal resting. Okay?
Which now, to be fair, I did say all that.
I know.
I was like, defilers are basically somebody who would defile.
That's the hardest part about being a DM, dude, is I can't just be like, hey guys, listen up. He's right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So,
although, let me give a little detail into this. This is just how funny our thought process was. Okay, so, and again, 5,000 years, so it obviously didn't work is what we were thinking. The idea was like, okay, well, if this thing is animated by this, how can we figure out a way to still steal?
Oh man, brilliant!
All of the possessions. So the idea was we went and got all the vases filled with oil.
Hold on. Before that, they take the mask off. This guy sits up. As he's sitting up, it's just a skeleton. Okay, like oh God, what, like cartilage and all these things start to begin to
like
fill in sinew and like
tendons.
Yeah,
and
kind of
muscle.
slowly starts to like build up very slowly on this skeleton. And they're like, what is going on? And he's just like kind of confused and, and they're like, well, and they put the mask back on and he goes back to sleep. So then they lays back down. So then they're like, oh, okay, that somehow triggers that. Luckily now they're playing it smart, right? Then
5,000 years later,
and by the way, so they were like deep in the depths of this underground, these caverns and stuff, or these, what would you call, like hallways, okay, underneath this temple. Yeah. And so that's how they had to make their way out. Well, now there's this giant like hole that they saw just outside of this room that had like roots and stuff. And obviously everything around them was like destroyed. They couldn't backtrack because that way was blocked. They couldn't move forward because that's kind of blocked by a cave in. And so now they had to climb out.
It's kind of like I am Legend in a way.
Yeah. So they had to climb out, okay? Before they do that, that's when they're like, go ahead, Tyler. Tell them what you guys decided to do. Amazing.
The idea was, okay, how can we still do this? So literally, we had the crypt, or I guess it'd be like a crypt, right? Or tomb?
Yeah, it was like a sepulcher, I think. Or
sepulcher. Yeah. That's good. The lid is off. So we just start stacking these vases of oil in the thing. And then as we're going to like run away, then we're going to like fire a flaming arrow at it and then just sort of escape, which it didn't end up happening though.
Oh yeah. This is what happened. You guys like situated the doors to where it was just like barely enough room for a flaming arrow to shoot through. Now, I made you roll for that. And of course, finally, you rolled incredibly, I believe. And this flaming arrow just goes through that gap. I think somebody physically pulled the doors and y'all just started climbing. And it just like, boom, just burst into flames.
Yeah.
You guys got the heck out of there.
But we don't totally know what...
We don't know what's happened to this guy.
We don't know what happened on the other side of the door.
You just know that you have his mask in your gear.
And we escaped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, all that to say, they now have to deal with, and I do too, 5,000 years have passed. Who's left on this planet? Or planet, well, I guess, but most specifically this continent, is the whole land destroyed? If so, how long can they survive? I mean, are there plants that still, grow? I mean, has anything changed? Have survivors, created an all-new society for thousands of years? Or is it just a barren wasteland with an outpost for this army? We're just going to have to find out.
Yeah, I think that's a good stopping point. And I really hope you guys have enjoyed hearing us nerd out and talk about our D&D adventures. We understand it's not for everyone, and that's cool. Specifically our wives. They're in that
but I argue, or I would argue that, I wish I could, honestly, if I could just DM for a small group of you guys and gals, I promise you, man, you would have so much fun because it's just so much fun. I would make it fun. We would make it fun.
Yeah. And it does this weird thing that, like, I don't know, I'm sure I've mentioned it before, but it does this weird thing to where, like, we're all adults. We all have bills and houses and rent and, all adult things, kids. But it does this thing where, the D&D is sort of like walking you through these things, and he's kind of like, not necessarily like reading, maybe sometimes, but like, it's like it immediately accesses this part of your brain and like takes you right back to when you were a kid and you're sitting on the rug in maybe the library or your classroom, and your teacher is like reading, a choose your own adventure book or like just any kind of like book to you. I don't know, it does something to where it like takes you back to that when you were like really young and there was so much sort of opportunity and possibilities in like reading, where it's like, oh man, the next page, who knows what could happen.
Right.
And it just does something like really magical and takes you right back to those times when you were a kid.
I 100% agree. It also like triggers a mechanism in your brain that you don't often get to use as an adult, which is like, not just imagination, but like the types of problem solving and stuff that you have to use and be innovative and stuff. And I think one of the arguments, my wife specifically, is that like, she doesn't like to utilize that. She just like she's like, I just don't have, her joke is like, I just don't have imagination, like I just want it to be real. When you say like, my character does this, it's like, no, it doesn't. And I'm like, okay, you're right. I don't want you down there. I don't,
Yeah.
But for me, I was the kid that would just ride my bike outside with my little brother and my friends and stuff, and we'd pretend everything and anything that you can think of, that we were the Goonies themselves. And so to be able to like have to do that while at the same time paying attention to detail, because that the person delivering the detail, there might be something baked in there that I need to remember later. And that like, I want to go over to that table. And you said that there was an apple on there. I'm going to, whatever. You know what I'm saying? To me, that's where I really dove in head first once we from the first session with Ellis, the original DM for me, and just dove in. Now, before we go, dude, before we say goodnight here, I completely forgot, and I'm going to bring it up now. The sort of joke that I make about stone sense as an ability is that very first session with Ellis, he kind of did it was supposed to be a one shot. It ended up being like 3 sessions.
I forgot about that.
I was a dwarf. And again, brand new to this, I'm like really digging into all the different abilities. Well, one of the abilities that a dwarf will have, because they come from these like rocky mountainous regions where they,
they live in mountains.
Yeah, they build these like incredible societies within the mountains where they forge, anything and everything from metal, but then also stones, and create these immaculate, strong weapons and all this other stuff. They really have a great feel for different types of rock, and they have this incredible knowledge base of it.
Yeah.
Ellis puts us in this hallway, and it's like smooth stone. He's describing it, and I'm like, can I tell, well, guys, like somebody was asking something like, well, what should we do? And I was like, well, I mean, I've got stone sense. I can tell like the origin of this rock. And I said, hey, dude, do I know the origin? He's like, yeah, it's rock. I'm like, huh?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
And so from then on, it's just like, hey, guys, I've got stone sense.
Well, and it's basically the exact same, too, as me always saying that I have dark vision.
Right.
Because I'm always an elf.
Yeah.
So they have dark vision.
Incredible, man. Dude, we talked about film. We talked about D&D. We didn't even talk about, I'm all caught up on the Jinx Part 2, dude.
Dude, me too.
Wow. Did you even know? Dude, I didn't even know Robert Durst died.
I didn't either. We were both shocked about that.
Yeah, man. But he got convicted.
We were like, what? Which, dude, man, you really started seeing the serial killer come out in court when he's like,
how about, sir?
Yeah, when he's like, so if you did kill her, would you lie about it?
Oh, my God, dude.
Yes.
Chills. Full body chills.
Oh,
yeah, no, dude. When he's like...
Although when he said, I mean, it was close to the last episode of the first season. Whenever he's like, and I wouldn't even know where Kathy would be buried.
Oh, yeah, no, dude. They're
and then
buried.
you saw on his face like, oh, no.
Yeah, no. Boy. Oh, my gosh, dude. Dude, there's also, not to promote other podcasts, but there is...
I see that every now and then.
Dude, listen to it. It's incredible.
Is it cool?
Yes, because they go through the first season and the second season, and it's done by the guy who was basically a part of the editing team. So he's got, there's bonus
like the guy with
audio.
Like the beard.
I don't know if they ever show him.
He's the guy that like kind of is like crying when he's talking about how emotional it was. Whenever, not the brother, but like the filmmaker guy. You see a lot on the first season.
The main guy? The main filmmaker, Andrew?
Yeah, is that the guy you're talking about?
No. But he, they have interviews with him and stuff. So this is just like a guy that's the editor and just like, partner of Andrew. And they take you, it's so cool because, I mean, I binged this podcast, I don't know, because most episodes are about 30 to 40 minutes long. And in the first season, and I think there might be like, I don't know how many episodes, man, okay, but they walk you through the first season. There's bonus audio of stuff of interviews that they extend from some of these people. There's bonus audio of Bob. There's bonus audio of like the prison calls. I mean, you name it,
the wife stuff, the new wife stuff.
Oh, yeah, dude.
That's a whole new thing, man. Yeah, it's great.
How basically she just had like a relationship with another dude the whole time, dude.
Yeah.
And then she's going to get a payday out of it. I mean...
And it kind of makes you, I mean, I think he definitely did it, but it does lead you to believe like, oh, wait a minute, was he also just being like tricked the whole time? Because like supposedly they got married and then the following day, instead of a honeymoon, he's on his way out to California and then the other girl dies. Linda?
Dude.
What's her name?
He was, okay, hold on. I understand what you're saying. Maybe it's because I've been listening to the podcast. Dude. They get married because he's trying to basically, he knows the heat's on him.
Right.
This is all happening at once. So he gets married to this lady so that he can sort of almost shelter the money. Simultaneously, he books a ticket. He goes out to L.A. to kill this lady who said, like, look, man, I'm thinking about going to
Linda?
No.
What's her name?
Oh, my gosh, man. You see there?
It's the girl with the bangs. She kind of looks like Karen O.
No, it's not Kathy. Kathy was his wife.
Yeah, Kathy was the first.
Susan Berman.
Susan Berman, that's it.
Yeah.
I was saying Brennan, yeah.
So he flies out there, kills her. And he admits to writing the cadaver note.
I know.
And then they show that testimony where they're like, now, did you kill Susan Berman? No, I did not. Would you lie to me if you did? Yes, I would.
Man, that's a pretty good impression.
Dude, I rewatched the whole first season again.
Mm-hmm.
Killed them.
Dude,
all,
what about how much of a put on he does his like sick voice in court? I know that he like is old and is falling apart, but you would hear like in court he was like, but then you hear him on the phone calls like the same day of, and he's like, and he's totally normal.
It's just like with things like that, man, I always get so sort of scared for people because, and I guess to a certain extent, like the filmmaker Andrew is, I guess protected or whatever, but like if the conspiracy is wider, think about like how much you're putting yourself in danger when you're, essentially the one who was able to help bring Susan Berman's murder to justice. Mm-hmm. He was never convicted of Kathy's murder, his wife. But dude, go back and watch season 1, man. When he's talking about Morris Black, that guy that he ended up killing, chopping up and dumping in Galveston Bay.
Right.
Like the way he talks about it, it's so crazy, dude.
Yeah.
Ugh. All right, I got to get out of here.
All right, pal. Good night.
Good night, man. Hey, if you're listening to this on our main feed, we really hope you enjoyed this little peek into the types of conversations we have over on the Rabbit Trail, our Patreon. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You wanted me to keep on going. It sounded good, huh?
You just said
And if you would like to be one of our biggest supporters, you can do so by going over to patreon.com/thatwouldberad. There's a couple different tiers that you can choose from. And again, it just not only shows your support for, what we do, but it keeps the boat afloat.
That's the way it goes. clouds in a time where I just needed some sunshine. You were already dead before you became a ghost. You always said our future